Welcome to Financial Literacy Part 3, a video prepared by Stark State College's Institute of Management Accountants Student Club regarding financial trouble and bankruptcy.
I found myself in financial trouble. I say fresh out of high school was really my first time being on my own, and I remember my mom always tell me when I first started trying to apply to get credit cards, things of that nature, what to do, what not to do with them. But you know, being young and being real impulsive, I was going to buy clothes and things of that nature. And then eventually, I just found myself at a point where the money I was bringing in a month really wasn't knocking the debt into my credit card debt that I had acquired because of things like the interest payments. But so I had to cut back on a lot, and I tried to go get a place on my own. I had to go back with my mom, and that's when I really got focused on my finances when I moved back with my mom, because it was like, wow, I was just out there in the world feeling like I was this independent adult, just not making the right choices. So then when I got back with her, it was just my goal to become more disciplined with my finances. So I worked a lot of overtime and started paying those credit cards off, and I just kept telling myself I wasn't going to make the same mistakes that I had before. So I downloaded Credit Karma and started paying attention to the credit scoring system and started trying to utilize the things that I had learned just to improve my credit score and just my discipline with money overall.
Some things to look for if you think you're getting yourself into some financial trouble. If you realize that you're regularly paying your bills late, if you actually feel like you need to take out a loan to pay off your old loans, if you're making the minimum balance each month on your credit card, if you spend more than 20% of your net income on debt, if you knew if you lost your job and didn't have that paycheck, you would be in immediate financial trouble. Basically, you're living paycheck to paycheck. Or if you're spending more than you earn, either you're using your credit card to cover those expenses, or you're taking money out of your savings account to cover your monthly expenses. Those could be all signs of trouble.
Yes, I've been in financial trouble. I had to completely throw away my social life, drop my allowance that I give myself every month down to almost nothing. I worked as many hours as I possibly could, and I took all my debt and I got a loan with a lower interest rate than most of my debt had. So I actually paid off my debt with debt, and then I just paid off that loan until it was gone and I had a little bit of a cushion of money.
There are various reasons that people find themselves in financial trouble. Probably the most common, as it mentions here on the slide, is a loss of income. So whether you lose your job, you've gotten ill and are no longer able to work or no longer able to work full time, possibly you've had a divorce or your spouse has passed away. Those are the most common reasons. Then the second most common reason is just poor money management, just overextending, buying too much and not really looking at your income and not being able to afford it. So a lot of times that just comes from you want everything and you want it now, and you really can't live for a long period of time that way. It eventually will catch up with you.
So when I found myself in financial trouble was when I had my daughter. I was not prepared for the amount of money that I was putting out for her, like simple things like diapers, which is like $50 for no reason. And in order to combat that, I had to go through my expenses and see what was important to me and what expenses I could take out. So like eating out every single day. Of course, I had to minimize that now to, I go out to eat it's like 3 times a month now, every 10 days. So that the money that I would be eating out, now I can use that towards something that I have to do now, like diapers and wipes and clothes for my daughter, so that I'm still in balance. But when I first had her, it took me about 2 months to get conformed to that new system.
If you find yourself in financial trouble, the first thing you should do is take a look at your budget and see what you can trim out. We have a whole series on budgeting in our financial literacy program. and you really should look through line by line of all your discretionary expenses and see if you can't cut some of those unneeded costs out. Then you really should contact your creditors. Many times creditors understand if you've lost a job or you've gone through a divorce or had medical illnesses, and they may be able to lower your monthly payment, maybe stop charging or remove the late charges. So you need to be able to help them understand why you can't pay, and that maybe you just need like 6 months to get your feet back on the ground, and they may be able to work out a new payment schedule for you. But then if you do have money coming in, definitely at least try to continue to make those minimum payments, whatever you've worked out with those creditors, so that you can avoid any late fees additionally. The best thing that you could do is try to consolidate all of your debt into one monthly payment. There's a couple different options. If you own your own home, it would be fairly easy, hopefully, to get a home equity loan, assuming you've owned it for a little while and have some equity. But the key to that one is you're going to have to make sure that you're going to change your spending habits, cut up those credit cards or put them away so that you're not using them, and then just focus on making that payment. You can also contact some different consumer credit agencies that will help you. There are some that are not profit. So this National Foundation for Consumer Credit has locations all across the country, and there's a 1-800 number. And those types of agencies will contact your creditors, ask them to withhold charging any further interest, reverse late fees, and just get down to the true balance that you owe them. Sometimes they'll even contact your employer if you're willing and have an amount garnished out of your paychecks, not garnished to the courts, but garnished to this consumer credit agency. And then they will in turn pay your creditors off in the order of priority. But just be careful. There are some companies that advertise online, and those are for profit and they will charge a fee. So definitely market that around.
The things that I'm just doing to establish my credit is like I pay attention to like the credit scoring system. It's like your payment history, your credit card utilization, how many accounts you have open, the age of your credit history. And I'm just real careful with credit because it's so easy to mess it up. You might have been making 100 consecutive payments, but you slip up and make that one late payment, it can drop your credit score by 30 points. So me knowing that, I just take heed to it. So I try to be real disciplined and keep everything organized and just keep track of, oh, this is due on this date and this is due on this date. And I feel like you also should have a goal. A lot of people say they want to have good credit and things of that nature, but why do you want to have good credit? There's no point in taking all this time to have a 750, 800 credit score if you're not going to utilize it. You should be utilizing your credit score to actually find ways to make money, so kind of using your credit score as an asset. So once you establish what you want to do with your good credit score, it kind of motivates you to take steps in the right direction.
As I mentioned in the last slide, a garnishment is when money comes directly out of your paychecks. A garnishment is actually ordered by the courts, so a creditor or medical companies can do that if you have past due balances and they take it to court. An assignment is more what I was talking about on the last slide, where you agree to have money taken out of your check, such as for one of those credit counseling places, and that money would then be used to pay your debt. But it's an agreement between the lender and the debtor and allows it to happen. An attachment is when the lender goes to court and they can attach or seize your other assets. So sometimes that's if you have money in a checking account and you haven't paid them. If they take it to court, they can get the order to actually seize the money that's in that checking account. Repossession is when they would come and take your car back. I suppose it could be a motorcycle or something else as well. But if you're late, maybe 90 days on your car loan payment, they can come at any point. No, it doesn't matter where you're at. You could be at the gas station, at the grocery store, at your house, and they can take that vehicle. And then a foreclosure would happen if you had a mortgage on a house and if you had not paid in at least 6 months. It's definitely a longer period of time for a house. Then you would first be evicted, and then the house would be auctioned off. The bankruptcy process itself starts when you petition the court for bankruptcy. That would be a voluntary bankruptcy. If your creditors join together, they can force you into it. That'd be involuntary, but normally most people realize they're in financial trouble and then file for the bankruptcy. There's two common types for an individual, and that's the Chapter 7 bankruptcy, where you're going to list your assets, and many of which will be exempt from the bankruptcy court. They allow you to have a car up to a certain value, a house up to a certain value, your furniture, even jewelry again up to a certain value. So they're not going to take your life away. But then if you had any assets that were over those, or ones that were not considered exempt, those are going to be sold off and the proceeds used to pay your debt. Once all those non-exempt assets are gone, then your debt will be forgiven. If you make more than the median income of your county, then the courts are going to put you into a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, where they're going to look at your wages and they're going to garnish those wages for 3 to 5 years. And then those garnishments will be held at the court and then paid off the creditors. And the creditors will agree to not charge you any interest during that time, so that at the end of the 3 to 5 years, your debt should be all paid off. The advantages is that sometimes you can salvage your credit if you go through this process quickly and get yourself back on track. Obviously, the creditors are going to stop hounding you, and you will have to go through, it's mandatory to go through some credit counseling where they'll put you on a budget and work you through your finances. The disadvantages is it does go on your credit report and it does stay there for up to 7 years.
The person I know that had to file for bankruptcy, which would be my only experience with it, because it was someone who was close to me. I'm not sure if it was Chapter 7 or Chapter 11, but they ended up having to file bankruptcy, just not managing their money right, not managing their debt. They were using their credit card for more consumer purchases, and they never really followed a budget, so they were just kind of just real free and real loose with their money. They ended up getting a mortgage on a house. They had car loans, paying back student loans and things of that nature. They just got to the point where they were just underwater so far where they had to file for bankruptcy. So they had to get a bankruptcy lawyer, which I think was actually provided to them for free through a program. And it basically kind of like wiped away everything except, I believe, the student loans and child support that you owe. But besides that, it wiped away everything, but it's just like 7 years before it can come off your credit report, so it will be kind of difficult for them to get any other type of loans during that time. But it really kind of helped them start over and then I guess learn from their mistakes, because now they're really disciplined with their money after going through that. And I think that's something people don't know. They just think when you file for bankruptcy, it's an end all. I'll never be able to do this again, or get loans and things like that again. But it's not that. It takes time. It takes that 7 years for it to come off your record, and during that 7 years is when you should be learning from your mistakes and building everything back up and getting that discipline and focus that you need to manage your money and finances the correct way this time.
If you do go through bankruptcy, most of your debt will be forgiven. Child support, alimony, back taxes, and student loans are common ones that are not forgiven, so you still would have to pay those as they are due. But then the rest of your debt is going to be forgiven, and you're basically given a clean slate. So the first thing you want to do is reestablish banking relationships if you lost those. So you want to open a savings account and ideally a checking account. Sometimes you can't get a checking account if you had some checks that had bounced. But as soon as you could, you should try to get back into the banking relationships. So start with a savings account and then maybe add the checking account as soon as you prove worthy. You can use your tax refund to get those accounts set up. That's a great resource for that. Then again, go back to your budgeting, manage your discretionary spending so that you're staying within your monthly income and that you're paying your utility bills and your cell phone bill and anything else you have as they come due. Then you'll want to try to get credit. You may not be able to get a credit card immediately, but maybe start with a store cards, a place that maybe does have a higher rate of interest, but they'll give you a small credit amount. And then go ahead and put a balance on it. Don't max it out, but put a balance on it, and then make the monthly payments every month to reestablish that credit history. And then always check your credit score. Every consumer is guaranteed a free report, so watch the website, make sure it's a free report, just to make sure there's no errors on there and that your credit score is going up.
So right now I'm establishing credit with my 2 credit cards. I'm actually taking time on one and then time on the other. So I'll spend 1 month, I'll spend about $50, $60 on one, and then I'll pay it off, and then I'll use the other one. So I'm just going back and forth just to make sure that I'm not spending too much where I can't handle it, but I'm still being able to pay it off, because how I look at credit cards is it's not your money at all, but it does come from my account eventually. And I don't want it to affect my credit score too much. So the ways that I could do better, I would, if I could take it all back, I would actually just get one instead of the 2, because they both have their different interest rates if I do miss a payment, or they both have different rules and regulations. So I would just get one, just because of me right now being in school and being able to do too much.